Module 6, the importance of fees. Here's how fees can destroy your net worth. So when picking a fund, you must look at the fees associated with it. Let's go ahead and look at the example on the next slide. Alright, so before we go further, here are two funds with different expense ratios. The first fund is MOJCX. This is a Donahue Forlines Momentum Fund class. It has an expense ratio of 3%. The second is going to be VFIX. This is a Vanguard 500 Index Fund. It has an expense ratio of 0.04%. Let's see the total amount of fees we'll pay with each fund. Alright, so using a mutual fund calculator on Google, we can check to see how much in fees will be taken out of our investment in whatever fund we were to choose. So here's a mutual fund calculator. If we initially invest $10,000 into a fund, and in addition, we invest $6,000 per year, we get a 10% rate of return, and we do this for 30 years with a fund that has a 3% expense ratio. This will be the first fund we looked at on the last slide. So the ending value, net with fees, is $682,000. The ending value without the fees would be $1.62 million. The fees cost you $577,000. If you didn't have any fees, you would have $1.26 million instead of $577,000. Alright, now watch this. We're going to do everything the same. If we initially invest $10,000 into a fund, in addition, we put in $6,000 per year. We do this for 30 years, and we get a rate of return of 10% with the fund expense ratio that is 0.04%. This is the second fund that we looked at on the last slide. So the ending value, net with fees, we have $1,249,000. The ending value without the fees, we'll have $1.26 million. The fees only cost you $10,473. That is the difference between a high expense ratio and a low expense ratio. Do not let that information slip your mind. Make sure when you're doing your fund research and you're about to buy the fund, you keep this in mind. So although fees suck, do not let it stray you away from a great fund. A fund that returns 7% per year with a 0.04% fee will still underperform a fund that returns 14% per year with a 3% fee. So as long as the returns beat the fees, you're good. The only bad thing to this is that if that fund stops giving you good returns, which is why it's normally just better to go with index funds that have an above average return but low expense ratio instead of extremely high return funds only.